When I don't know what I want to draw, I always end up drawing faces. That's why I decided to do some portrait studies to work on improving proportions, placement of facial features, and to develop my eye for better results when I am drawing without a reference. For these sketches, I did use references. This is so I can compare what I am drawing to the image, to check my work for any inconsistencies, and to ensure I am placing the facial features in the correct place. I am focusing on placement rather than doing realism. I am also looking at the lighting from my references and placing rough shadows. By doing this, I can define the planes of the face, and that will help me understand where they are positioned when the head is at a different angle. Lighting can also have a large impact on the face and the overall feeling of an artwork. So by having a look at these shadows, it's interesting to see how they affect the different references I am using. When selecting my references, I decided to use a range of angles and facial features so I can work on some of my weak points. I can struggle with side profiles, in particular drawing the lips and the chin on this angle. When I am doing portraits, I do like to place a lot of emphasis on the eyes, as I find they can have a heavy impact on the artwork. By changing the eyes even just slightly, it can give life and depth to a character and change the feeling of the drawing. One thing I want to work on with eyes though is being able to draw them closed. I use one of the most common methods when starting my sketches, which is drawing a circle for the top of the head and then across to show the direction the character is facing as well as the eye line. While I find this to be a good starting point, I always seem to get the proportions wrong when basing it purely off that. I tend to draw larger than the construction lines and need to adjust the features due to this. In this sketch in particular, I had to erase the eyes as I thought they were the wrong shape and in the wrong position. By doing this, it helps me learn where the eyes should go and what is the correct placement for them. This helps to develop my eye so I have a more intuitive feeling of where they should be when they are in the correct position. I think positioning of the eyes is something that I tend to struggle with, especially when I'm using the cross method, and it's something that I'm aware of and that I need to work on more in the future. For this next sketch, I chose an upturned face with closed eyes. I wanted to practice those two elements and they can both be difficult for me to draw. I struggle with placing the nostrils, and with closed eyes I want to focus on defining the shape and not just drawing a straight line where the eyelashes sit. I think for this sketch I could have emphasised the angle a bit more, possibly by flattening out that chin line to make it look like her face is more upturned. In this reference, the lady was laying down and I wanted to have that interaction between her face and her arm that she was laying on. I did continue these sketches by lining them and deepening some of the shadows to give them a bit more of a polished look. For the last sketch on this page, I chose another upturned nose, but in a front-on position. I focused on the nose first and then added the other details around it. I just found that I needed a bit more extra practice with those upturned noses. Here are all the finished sketches together, as well as once they were lined and shaded. I enjoyed drawing all of these and I found them to be really good practice. So to finish off this study, I went to create a larger artwork focusing on the areas that I struggled with. I started off with my construction lines and focused on her nose and worked outwards. Again, I chose an upturned nose and she has closed eyes. For this piece, I wanted a more gothic feel and a darker vibe. I ended up redrawing the eyes that I had placed them too high again, like the other sketch. As I know this is a recurring mistake that I make, I can be more aware of it in the future to help me position the eyes correctly. I have to let myself be okay with erasing portions of my drawings so I can take the time to correct them. And while it can be time consuming, I want the best for my artwork and I want a better outcome. Initially I was going to line and shade this sketch just like the others, but I changed my mind as I went on and it ended up becoming a more multimedia piece. With my line work, I placed the lines in the darkest areas of her face and left areas like the bridge of her nose unlined so I can keep them softer when I came in with shading. I used markers to block in large areas that I wanted to leave flat shaded. Then I went in with a deep red marker for her lips for a small pop of colour, but also keeping that darker theming that I was looking for. The pencil I am using is a Staedtler Mars Lumograph black pencil. Ever since I've tried this pencil, this is the only pencil I will use for shaded portraits now. it goes really dark and you don't get that shine like when you try to press down too hard with a grey lead pencil. I'm also using a blending stump to soften some edges and to keep a nice gradient between my tones. I never used to like using blending stumps. I always felt like they softened everything too much and I would lose the sharpness of my drawings. However, by practicing more with them, I found a nice balance between when to use them and when to leave more texture and to leave that harsher line. It's all about practice and experimentation. So I'm slowly building up darker tones as well. I'm not just going straight in with dark tones, I am going over my darker areas and slowly building that up for a nicer look. Something that I did in this drawing that I've never done before is using my pencil to go over the top of the marker. I really like how this look turned out. However, if I want to try this technique again in the future, if I'm using a lighter colour, I would use a different colour pencil on top to avoid muddying up the colours. For the background, I'm using a gold ink to create the spider web. Overall, I am happy with the portrait and I found it to be good practice to focus on those areas that I felt like I was struggling with. I felt more comfortable with those particular facial features by the end of this study. Next time I want to focus on more extreme angles of the face. I really enjoyed creating these drawings and I think doing this has helped me notice areas for improvement as well as allowing me to see where my skills are currently. Thank you so much for watching, it really means a lot to me. If you want to see more of my artwork, you can find me on Instagram or click the link on screen now to watch another video where I talk through my process.